So, as uncomfortable as it's probably for me to bring this up right now, how'd you find out about Jack?
I found out, strangely enough, through a phone call through a good friend of all of ours at DVE, Tom Kays in Boulder, Colorado. He heard about it first, as far as I could tell, and then left a message on my home phone. Didn't get that till later. Then heard it on the air with Michelle.
Okay.
And then started working backwards from there.
Okay.
But of course, it's devastating. It's family.
Yeah.
For hundreds of thousands of people, it's family.
Right. Well, especially for you good folks that work with him. I mean, first thing, for me personally, the first time, the ironic part about it is, and we had spoken prior in your prior episode off camera, we had talked about, we'd love to have additional iconic DV folks in, and Jack was like near the top of my list there. I'd love to have Jack on, and and that would take some planning, obviously, but my goodness, when I heard that, the first person I thought of was you. Oh my gosh, how is Herschel feeling about this? And that's why I reached out right away, and I knew for all of you that work so close with him, I can't imagine.
The first time we spoke here, and thank you for having me back, man.
It's episode 2 of Riffin with Herschel.
That's right. But I spoke about Jack because he was the one guy I mentioned before, always would say at parties, get-togethers, wherever we were, you big bonehead, why don't you do some of what you really are? Actually let people know,
Right. You did say that.
And I didn't do it. Not nearly enough. Jack, I'm going to try and make up for it now. I'm going to be a bonehead from that's it. But
you've been very candid with me, sir, and I appreciate that.
Oh, well,
I appreciate that.
Why not? Jeez.
Yeah,
you guys all helped us make it so far, really.
Yeah, man. I just when you sat, I guess maybe for the first day and reflected on your time with Jack, what kind of memories did you have there, funny or maybe not, that came to mind immediately?
He was, he would have a little bit of reverb on his mic.
I didn't know
overnight.
that.
Yeah,
oh, okay.
and also he would do an oldies show. Was it Sunday mornings?
Well, back then, what was oldies?
Well, he was doing. It would be the hits that our generations knew. It wasn't really doo-wop.
Like
but
60s, maybe?
Yeah.
Late 60s?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he was excellent at it, and that was his. He was as much a hippie from 1969 as any one individual I've ever met. To me, he represented all the good, peace and love and music and learning and teaching, and man,
wow.
Yeah.
I remember as a young person, early 80s, I want to say, very early, maybe 81. I think he was doing Midnights then. I think he was. But I remember calling and asking for some very deep. I'd always call him probably. He got used to picking up the phone with me, and I don't think he ever asked my name. But I used to ask for a lot of Rush and a lot of very deep cuts, so to speak. Before I think you folks even had the deep cut show. He goes, that's not. Most people aren't going to know that song. Can you give me something a little more current? I'll play whatever you want, but you got to give me something more current. But he was. And I think everybody was always kind up there when they answered the phone. I never had a bad experience, but Jack would take the time with a 12-year-old like me or 13-year-old, and he'd listen to why I wanted, and he would interact with me, and that made him different to me.
And Eric, those of us that were lucky enough to be involved with DVE before it got so successful that a minute meant a whole lot. So there was not a lot of time to be wasted, and that's not a bad thing. I'm glad that it attained that. But those of us that had a taste of, you know what, I'm going to play it. I'm going to play it anyways. And come on. And it was easier to get forgiveness than permission. So. And wasn't that what we were supposed to do, was break a few rules?
Okay, so I'll go back to an exact moment. I remember calling him, and I wanted to say it was 81, and Rush had just released the Moving Pictures record, which had Tom Sawyer and all the, there was a couple commercial songs there for Rush. And I asked him to play The Camera Eye, which was a 10-minute obscure kind of, and I must have asked 3 times. He played it. I could not believe that. So, it was, I'm like, I probably had to wait till 3:30 in the morning to hear it, but he played it, which I'll never forget that, which I know is obscure. Either he was tired of me asking, or he just really thought that was cool. Someone knew, something so obscure like that at a young age. I'm thinking, but I'll never forget that. Of course,
See
little
how
thing,
it affects?
but I
See how
remember
it
that,
affects? Yeah.
and yet you never forget those things.
He will forever be our guardian angel.
Mm-hmm.
He's
Yeah.
man, he's a rock and roll spirit. But really, to me, he exemplified that time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember, what was his favorite music? If he had his druthers, he could have played everything that he really dug. Would it have been that stuff coming out of the late 60s, early 70s?
That's what I would say, but Jack would probably surprise me and throw something at me that's...
Because he was there for such a long time. And your career spans such decades as well.
And good question, what did Jack Malloy listen to at home? What does Jimmy Roach listen to at home? What does Hersch listen to at home? Nothing. He
We're
can't
getting
hear.
there.
Can't hear it. The guy can't. That's what I read. Guy can't hear a thing.
He just usurped my comment from like 10 minutes ahead here. We're going to get to that. I've always wondered that. What do our favorite DJs listen to in their car when they don't have to play music? What do they dig? And that would have been great to know for him, because again, like you said, he came right out of that 60s. It was. And I wonder who he was.
What was the first concert that Jack went to?
Right.
That made
as a
him,
fan.
Yeah.
Probably before you folks had to go as part of the job.
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. What was yours?
Oh man. Well, actually, to me, the show and the band that I strived so hard, the band I strived so hard to be like, yet I wasn't a musician nearly good enough ever to be good enough, was Gravel, which was Corbin Hanner, and we spoke about that before.
They're right behind you. I moved the picture.
Oh, good.
It used to be over here. It's behind you right now.
Oh, that's right. Oh, perfect. But and I wanted to be a sound guy, and I went through all that. But that's. And then was so lucky to see the one that I'll never, ever, ever forget is Leonard Skinner. I told you about that one at the Siri-Ma. So it may have been something like that.
Musically,
71. So.
Musically, though, they were so good, right? It was because they were just there to play their music. Leonard Skinner. There wasn't a big stage show or anything. It was just there to play the music, and the music was the show.
Yep. Yeah, it was.
So. About shows in general, this is where I'd like to go. So, Leonard Skinner was a band that came and just played.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the music was their show. But then I guess arena rock, whatever that ended up being termed, in the early 70s, it was more about, not more about, but there was an addition of light shows, and it got very theatric.
Oh, yeah.
Who do you think brought that in? Was that Pink Floyd possibly, or that early 70s era?
Well, you know what? It was probably more... though I never saw him early, but David Bowie had to have been doing stuff that was Genesis was doing stuff that was, but nothing to the caliber of Pink Floyd and then all those that
came after.
Yeah,
and because the Civic Arena was. I know that it gets mocked a lot because of it aged, and people would make jokes compared to the PPG Plaza. To me, I still think that the arena had tremendous acoustics. I just do. I've seen a couple shows in the PPG, and it was okay. I don't revel in the acoustics, Hersch, like a lot of people do there. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, what happened, I think, Eric, was there were so many civic arenas. Every big city had a civic arena. They came up with sound systems that really worked when they started flying them and arching and computer early computer delays, whatever they were doing. Like when I saw the year I saw Bruce Springsteen, Genesis, Prince, all those, it was stunning sound no matter where you were. It really was.
Right.
Man, it was like wearing headphones. Big freaking headphones.
Very large headphones.
Yes.
The Civic Arena was there were some legendary shows there. One of the bands I followed as a kid was Rush, and their very first performance ever was at the Civic Arena for Uriah Heep. Did you know that?
No.
I stumped Hersch.
Yeah, good job.
I can't believe that.
I think you go on to the bonus round.
But that was 73, and that's what I always remember, that being such an amazing. I don't know. I just think, again, it's probably my age talking to me, but we lost something unique when the Igloo was torn down.
I agree, but I want to throw this in. It's funny that Rush, who you love, was way more drum driven,
no question,
than and it's
I was a drummer as a kid.
See,
because of Neil Peart.
The best, I think. Here's a theory.
Okay.
I think some of the best producers and teachers are drummers.
Okay.
Because they've always had to be, first off, of course, the backbone, but they always had all this stuff that had to schlep around, and their family always helped them, and usually they had a sound system too, so they knew more and had more of the hardware and whatever to continue on. As a guitarist, it's like, okay, I have my guitar here and my, and they viewed it differently then. And
I think so.
Lenny White.
Oh my gosh.
Is a perfect example, and I was blessed to be able to still know him, but not communicate.
Lenny?
But
wow,
tremendous. It's something about drummers, man. And Gino Vanelli was a drummer. Mm-hmm. And then someone made him sing and get out in front.
Made more money singing, probably.
Yeah, he did. He did all right.
But Lenny is a badass, man.
Oh,
I mean, that's a Return to Forever stuff that I first. And my uncle, who was in Gravel, gave me these LPs with like Stanley Clarke and Al Di Meola and Return to Forever and Chick Corea, which was really far out for like maybe a 10-year-old to get his hands on.
What a good thing to do.
Yeah, but that also made me more open-minded to like progressive bands like Rush and Yes and ELP and Pink Floyd, because I was already whacked out listening to that stuff.
Yeah,
but
good.
But that 70s, that tapestry of the 70s and early 80s, it's so amazing.
Yeah, to me, I was just so lucky to be,
Memorable concerts for you. You talked about Crack the Sky was a big one for you last time you were on.
Yeah, Crack the Sky.
And then you were trying to get in a later version of Crack the Sky, and you almost had to bum rush the auditorium to get in.
That's right. I had to drive my car down into a creek, and then they brought a tow truck, and I said, well, while you have the tow truck here, I'm just going to go into... But no, they are the nicest people in the world at Jerkles.
No question.
And
what a great venue.
I owe them. Ooh, they're very nice. So, some of the shows that stunned me because I was in the presence of this is jazz stuff. In New York City.
I bet.
The night that they changed WRVR's format from jazz to country music that night, we went to see Bill Evans, unbelievable pianist and jazz pianist. We went to see him, and someone asked, I'm not sure who asked, but the question came up in between sets of Bill, what does this mean? This is we're stunned. We don't know what to say or do.
Right.
And he said, in the darkest times of jazz is when it flourishes.
Wow,
the most.
That's heavy.
It's like, well, this is what it's all about, is about emotion and about, you think this is going to hurt jazz? He didn't say that. I thought that. Mm-hmm. I felt better about it, but we were still devastated.
I can't. And I can almost see going to almost pop music from jazz or rock music from jazz, but country. That was a 180.
It was a slap in the face. I will always feel that way. That what will take us as far away from jazz
exactly.
as we can get right now.
And the existing audience base, listener base.
Polka was brought up. 50,000 watts of polka from the Empire State Building. Thank you, boys. Oh, my God.
Okay, so I have to bring this up because my good friend asked me to do that the next time you were on air. So here we go. What was the deal in the late 70s or 80s with DVE's fascination with Zamfir, the pan flute guy? There was a big comedy thing that went on, but it was almost it was either him or there was there was someone before them. Every couple of years, you folks would grab onto some kind of pan flute or some kind of yodeler.
Well, we were all blowhards, so we were always blowing into something, probably. Yeah, pan flute just sounds
horrific.
It does. I got pan flute. Do they give you an injection to get rid of the?
They have antibiotics for that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah, there was always something odd that you. And I'm trying. There was a Slim Whitman.
Oh,
do you remember the Slim Whitman?
Well, those commercials. There were so many commercials on. That was probably Paulson
him.
And
I think it was Jimmy and Steve, maybe or even
easily.
Yeah, Slim Whitman. And I want to say I could be wrong. But it was such a farce that was became like a cult thing in the station. I think they had him on the show, or they called and talked to him or something. Slim Whitman. Do you remember that?
Wow, hey, we have like a duo thing going there. That was like wow. But I'm so glad we got to say Slim Whitman.
Yes, that's a good radio name. Slim Whitman.
Yeah. Better than Crunchy Granola.
Yeah.
That was my first radio name.
Oh, come on.
It was.
No, it wasn't.
Do I have to tell the story?
You do. Crunchy Granola?
Yes, I was going to the University of Pittsburgh, majoring in communications, and they had a carrier current radio station, which means you could pick it up just within a couple of blocks, and it would be broadcast into the cafeterias and stuff like that.
Okay.
And my friend, who I met in an art class, was a great cartoonist. And Mark Zingarelli is his name. His character was Smack Stinker Relish, and mine was Crunchy Granola, honest to God. And we read pornography, and we played pornography tapes, because we said, if we're going to be into radio, here's a chance to do something we'll never be allowed to do again. Well, the programming director, I'm pretty sure, knew what was about to happen and turned the transmitter off, but didn't tell us. We were still broadcasting because the chancellor of Pitt was going to be in the cafeteria just testing the food, I guess, because there had been complaints. So had this been on, I probably would have gone to jail, and Mark would have gone to jail. And
you played pornography music, or the actual tape
do you remember? Well, you're too young. Yeah, they would sell 8-track tapes and cassette tapes of pornography, which was like the weirdest thing in the world.
Don't remember that.
Yeah, good. I'm glad you don't.
Well,
I will scarred a lot of people.
Well, I remember late 70s and early 80s. Porn once in a while that would be in my sphere. And that music was pretty bad.
This was 73.
Okay, so that's early stuff.
There was a guy that came into the Mangon's gas station in New Kensington and would open the back of his trunk and have everything. All kinds of music, 8 tracks, but also the porno ones, too. Really, probably all stolen, too.
It was a super time back then, wasn't it?
I'll tell you. Weird time. It was.
Last time you were on, you said you were on air during the blackout in New York City, but we didn't elaborate on that a little bit.
Playing Al Di Meola.
Yeah, that's what you did say. But we then we moved on to something else. Give me what that felt like. Give me the build up to that.
It was scary at first, and then kind of exhilarating because the WRVR, the jazz station, and WRL, our AM station, was it was the most famous black radio station ever in New York City,
right?
WRL. And there was a guy who was from New Kensington that was doing middays or afternoons, and he was really good. Jeffrey, oh my, we'll have to figure that out. Jeff, but he lived in Manhattan, and I did too. And as we went outside, the power went out, and we went outside, and the station was in Queens,
Right.
Jamaica, Queens, and it was a higher spot there, and you could see Brooklyn go out, and then part of Manhattan, and another part, and a upper part, and the Bronx. You could see them all. The Bronx went out. It just right in front of our eyes. I was stunned, and Jeff said, "Well, I'm going to go home and start barbecuing." That was his plan, and that's what New York pretty much did. They knew this was going to be out for a while, and you folks were on the air because there was backup electricity of a generator or something? But there was a generator there.
Okay.
But they couldn't get it started. And then they finally got it started, but couldn't get the power at the site, at the Empire State Building, to get their unit turned on to receive it. And the Sounderling family owned it. And one of the Sounderlings was there on our site, which was a really big deal, I thought. And, of course, general manager and everybody else. And they were so distraught that they were just that close to being able to be on the air and be able to broadcast and save the day for New York.
Right.
I'm not sure who got on first, ABC, CBS. Somebody got on then. But
so needless to say, they didn't put any deep planning into anything like that happening back then. I mean, there was a generator, and we just assumed it was there in case the unimaginable happens.
Right.
But now I'd imagine every station has redundant systems in place to do that.
Yeah, and I guess, Eric, what happened was not only losing your power in Jamaica, Queens is one thing, and getting your generator back up is important. But if that doesn't get you to where you're to Manhattan, that was the. It didn't matter.
Because you weren't
broadcasting. When would that ever happen? They'd say,
Exactly when it happened. So, and I still think about this all the time since our last episode. You were discussing playing a vinyl record, DMO, I guess it was, and it just slowed down.
That's it.
I can imagine you sitting there just going, okay.
And then it got dark, so we left the studio.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, for a radio station to not have redundant power today, be impossible.
And here's another real quick one. I told Brian Price at DVE, good friend, amazing producer, production director. He's everything. But told him that when we were in New York, it was when 9/11 happened.
Mm-hmm.
I flash back to being there when there was the blackout and how that was nothing compared to many people that I was there for 5 years that knew me, knew my work. I talked to on the radio and off the radio. They're in New York, and a lot of them I know were in the news, but lost contact. But that was my first thought at 9/11 was, oh man, those people I worked with, they're still there. They didn't leave New York.
I can't imagine in your career, especially early on, you never would go home at night and say, well, if there was an emergency, how would I handle it? If I was on there, how would I handle it? That's something almost unimaginable, right? I mean, you're playing records, and all of a sudden, if something like that happens, you have to deal with that. And I always wonder how disc jockeys would have handled that, being that they don't do news every day. They don't do life and death every day.
I'm glad you bring that up because I was on when Flight 427 crashed in Pittsburgh. And I was so far from a news guy as you could get, and didn't know what to do. And I know that everybody at the station, Gene Romano was the programming director, I think. Pretty sure he was. And he had probably just started. And it was devastating because we were never a news outlet. We were everything but a news outlet. We were a release from the... We did as much news as we were supposed to do. Content of news was required. Percentages were required, and probably still are, but not as much. So when that happened, I was lost, didn't know what to do.
It was like 94, I think, 1994.
You're better than me, but whatever.
So take me back to that day. I mean, what?
I'm on in the afternoon, and all of a sudden, everyone rushes in, and it's like it just crashed in Hopewell. We're in Green Tree. You could almost see the smoke from there. And I lived in Moon Township and had so many good friends, and we had a lot of people at DVE that lived out in that area and grew up in that area.
Right.
Man, it was... And then the poor folks on the plane and their families and relatives.
Do you remember what it was like? So how'd that work for you? You're playing music, and all of a sudden, I mean, computers were different then. It wasn't like it is today. Did you get like physical reports they handed you, things you had to read? Were you?
Yeah, pretty much. That's what it was. And and then my shift ended, and it went into the evenings, and things got, I think, a little better with what they were doing. I was, I didn't know what I was lost, man.
Yeah,
I
wonder what
lost.
a station. So, the operation of a radio station, would the program director make a determination based upon severity, whether you keep playing music for a while or how?
And I'm sure it was Gene Romano.
That's a
he
judgment
did.
call.
He did a good job.
That's a judgment call.
He did a good job, man. That was if I had been programming director. I didn't know what to do. So how good would I have been?
Yeah, that really, to me, I always wonder about that. I go back, and sometimes just on occasion I'll go back and revisit 9/11 and just the news reports when it just happened. And then I think about, in media, like all of you folks, what decisions are made and when does things slowly get back to normal? I think some of the stations didn't run any commercials for 4, 5, 6 days. Well, it was very strange.
Think about it. What was the show? The Nightline started when the first day Nightline was on was the first day of the hostage crisis, and it became a show.
Yeah, Ted Koppel, right?
Yeah.
The hostage.
That's
right.
That's what that show started as.
Okay.
So,
did you through your career, since we're on the whole topic of news, it must have been interesting to watch, because you were in music, you were a disc jockey, you were an entertainer in that regard. Or keeping people, the lighter part of life is music, right? So you're feeding us what we want for a release, and then it must have been interesting to watch the proliferation of news and news related shows become entertainment. That must have been a little strange. I mean, more of it happening.
Yeah, and look today, right now, there's about 30 minutes, maybe an hour's worth of real news in 24 hours. But there are how many 24-hour news outlets that just keep going over and over and over their agenda and their slant, their spin, it's still just 30 minutes.
If that.
Walter Cronkite, where are you? Uncle Walty. And that's the way it is.
And you read the dates, right? Yeah, I'm young. I mean, I'm old enough to remember that as a kid. It's so different now.
I think it was. That's the way it is.
But it's so different now.
Wow, it is. And man, I don't know. Do we like watching train wrecks, Eric? What is it?
I don't know. Because to me, the radio was a release for me, and if I was hearing news on the radio, it was between songs, or it was between innings, listening to the Pirate game, and Nellie Prince and Bob Prince were giving me Nellie Browse and Bob Prince were giving me the game. That's what I remember as a kid.
That's why I love Sean McDowell so much. Was he found a way to work it all in with music too? Right. He really did. That ain't easy at all. Oh my goodness.
So how's the 50th anniversary been going?
And Chad's doing good, by the way.
I like him.
Good luck.
I like him.
50th anniversary. I haven't heard a whole bunch more about what's working right now, but when I find out, I'll let you know.
I appreciate that. Have you gone down and done any interviews yet? Have you?
I've been back again, and I'll go.
Okay. Does it seem like
them more?
Is same building, right?
Absolutely.
Different accoutrements, different rooms and all that stuff. But has it changed a lot since when you left?
Oh yeah, it has changed a lot. It's just to go back and see, Eric, the performance room is to die for.
I'm familiar with it. It's in the center, right?
It's in a corner, but you don't. It doesn't. You don't feel like you're in the corner.
Okay.
Of the building
It doesn't.
There's a false wall and some stuff. Maybe it is kind of in the center. Anyways, I know the building it's in, but
yes, you do.
And that was a dream. And it all came true for so many of us.
Yeah,
Man, the announcers and the engineers and the man, it's pretty neat.
Some of the old guard's still there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what makes the. And I was just thinking about Chad. I got to know him a little bit just through social media and reading about him. And he was I asked him some questions. He was very kind and respond to me.
Nice.
Yeah, very nice. And I think about him walking in there and knowing a bit about the station. He's from West Virginia, I believe, and knowing the Steelers. And then it's almost like for what he does and for your field, it's almost like walking into hallowed halls. It really is. DV is such a huge, iconic brand and station in this town. It's very heavy, and it doesn't go away. It's funny. You can still scan the FM dial, and DV still the loudest, the strongest, and the clearest station imaginable.
That's right.
It's so good though. It's part of home. At least the way I feel about it.
And I get that. I know the feeling Chad has, because when I went to New York, I was going to the most prestigious radio station in the world. Leonard Feather, who has written books and books and books and books and knows everything about jazz, was one of the announcers. So it was really scary. Never got over it, but it makes you really concentrate. And Dennis Waters, who took me there, and Bob Bittman and a bunch of those guys helped me to calm down. Leave that girl alone. There was always a girl. I'm telling you.
There always is.
But it all worked out. And not for WRVR, but it did for me.
Yeah.
And I know Chad's going to have a blast.
Yeah, see what you really loved? You loved spinning jazz records. Oh, those jazz records, huh?
Yeah, they had. The library went to NYU, and it was and still is, and will always be the largest collection of mono and stereo jazz albums. So Blue Notes would go to them if they needed to find an album.
Wow.
That company doesn't exist anymore, probably, but.
Yeah. So I guess I want to make sure I understand. Were you playing the rock/jazz fusion stuff, and also going back all the way to the roots of it all?
Yeah, we'd play Miles Davis.
Okay.
Return to Forever, like Patti LaBelle. But a really, I thought, absolutely cool mix. But you can never. Jazz people are tough, man. Everybody's tough, but jazz people are really tough to try and satisfy and to, and we went so far as to, as a music director with Pat Prescott, we would find out what key the song was, so our segues would go, in the same key it was ending.
It was that thought out.
That's how we were getting to that point as music directors. We wanted to really make it so that you'd just sit at work and go, oh, what are they doing there? 2 hours just went by, and I didn't get any work done because I've been just sitting here listening. So it was fun.
Less inclined people, by doing that, obviously the goal was to be people less inclined to turn the channel after that particular song comes on. If the keys match, and it's a fluidity to it all. Yeah,
it was real subliminal. It really was. Yeah. It was more that we were trying to be almost musicians as disc jockeys, mixing the music sonically.
Yeah, the average person would never think that goes on behind the scenes, but that's fascinating to me.
It was fun.
The keys kind of had to mesh.
I swear some radio stations, it happens a lot by chance, but yes, it's pretty neat.
Yeah, no question. That brings me to another question I had for you last time that we just never got to. I never remember when I was younger and really spending considerable time listening to DV while I was working and so forth. Now I tend to get it in the car a lot, don't listen at home as much. But I never remembered FM radio, well, let's say rock radio, turning the speed up of the songs.
No.
Taking a 4-minute song and making it 340.
The top 40, I'm sure they did, because they only had so many seconds in an hour. So
you folks didn't do that at DV in your era at all?
No. If anything, we'd slow it down. There were girls sitting on the turntables. We would slow it down just a bit. No, we did. But I would phase. I would be playing a song and then get the same song going on another channel and then phase them in for all the people that were doing acid. It was great. But there's machines now, Eric, that you and I talk into it and we do the whole interview, and then you hit a button. It takes every everything out of it that we didn't put into it. It's really weird listening
it's weird, and it can sound unnatural. The reason I bring it up, Hersch, it's a pet peeve of mine, and I'll share this with you. As a realtor, I've purchased ads all over this town. And they'll spin my minute ad and they'll crank my minute ad down to 56 seconds, 56 and a half seconds. And taking that extra 3 seconds out, makes me almost sound like a chipmunk sometimes. They don't do it right. They don't do it right. But I know they're doing that to music. So I inquired, and I was told by an actual station owner that, yes, we do that. We wind it up a little bit, so we hope it's unrecognizable or indistinguishable. And that's why I have a kind of a sour thought on the whole thing. If you purchase a 60-second ad, you should get 60 seconds. And I know they like to slide little reads in here and there, but they're doing that to music, and I can hear it. Maybe my ear is more discerning than some folks. But
they may find out it causes headaches. It causes like some weird thing. It's like, wait a minute, I've heard Freebird before. That's not Freebird.
I know, to me it's phenomenal. So I wonder when that started. That's like you've obviously heard of that before, right? That's not a new thing. It's been going on for a while. But you guys didn't do that in your era of.
No, I never. Again, except for just phasing records in and out, I would never. We couldn't control the speed of our turntables. They were dead on. They were, belt driven. They were. The first ones were steam operated. I remember that, and you'd have to call downstairs. I'm going to need 45 RPM. I'll tell you when. No, but you couldn't change the speed. The tapes, though, that's where you messed with it, Eric. With the tapes.
All right, that's why it probably started there.
We'll fix it in the mix. That's where that. No.
Oh, please tell me that didn't happen. CDs came 84, 85. I think the first CD players commercially, if my memory serves me correct, was actually 83.
Yes, we had a Studer from Germany.
That's what I'm at. Do you remember?
It came with a German technician. It did. It didn't speak English. I'm telling you, it's like, excuse me. Your name again. All I need first off, I have to need. How do you open the door to put the CD into the? Really, it was that bad.
Oh my God!
And the doors would jam. It's like, well, we're not playing that. We're not playing two in a row here.
Do you remember what the transition was like? Did you guys all have a meeting and the program director said, "Well, we're going to institute this new technology"?
Well, no, here's what happened, Eric. The only CDs available we could get were from Sony, and Sony said, we'll give you every CD we have, which was like 5. But you have to say, and now from Sony CDs is Dark Side of the Moon. And that's when we would do it. and it would play like 5 minutes and skip, or someone
ones,
would bang a door and
sucked.
something would.
The new ones were so bad when they first came out. The quality of the recording was so bad.
Well, it was the machines, Eric. It was it just wasn't made for commercial use, which was slam it in, smack on it a little bit. We went from, it was a different kind of, I hope the door closes. Oh, it closed.
So there was any backup. Let me ask you this. Do you remember vinyl failing on you? Have you been on the air when vinyl would skip or vinyl would fail?
I was on the air. Oh, man, it's like, that was such a good segue. I'd go boom to the next song. Great segue. Go over and pick up the song I just put on. It's like, boom. Oh, shit. I'm just, yeah.
I can remember listening to DV clearly as a child, and I can't tell you. I mean, it was in the late 70s. A song skipped, and one of y'all was in the bathroom because it went. Don't laugh. I think it was a Skinner song, and it just for a good minute or two.
I went outside when I smoked cigarettes. When I was. I won't tell you when it was. It'll give me away. But anyways, went outside, and a song skipped. And I didn't know it, but by the time I came back in, it had fixed itself, or God, somebody help me. I don't know what. Didn't find out about it until much later, but boy.
Yeah, I can remember some things skipping. And I remember CD skipping. I remember that. When
that's CD all they did.
Yeah, so the transition, though, how did you feel about that? For all those years of spinning discs, which maybe is a pain in the butt, too, I don't know. Vinyl was cool, right? That was the whole thing.
We had really good sound systems, Eric, so CDs sounded great. They really did. We had,
even in the beginning?
Old Crown tube amps and Macintosh and JBL. Yeah, it was... But it wasn't the same. There's no album covers. I can't clean my marijuana with a CD case. What is... Oh, man, that was the downfall from then on. Nah, but really, it was a different... Sean and I have talked about... He talked about it a lot, and he knew everything, every liner note, every lyric. He studied it. He is the grand poobah. Right. He's the high exalted mystic ruler.
I'm sure he loves that title.
Yeah. But
that was a huge change.
It was the beginning of. It got really big then, Eric. It exploded, all of it. The ratings, the advertising. It was growing, and DVE was able to use the money it made to improve itself, as did KD and other big ones then.
Like now, when you go into a studio, everything is tracked digitally. Like songs are tracked; they're just pressing buttons in there, right? I mean,
I went in and recorded with Sean
right
during his show.
I heard,
and he kept moving me from studio to studio, and we did like 3 tremendous interviews that he didn't even use that day until later.
Wow.
And I was so confused.
What's live anymore?
And his show was stellar that day. He had already had things running while we were recording.
Yeah,
like, man.
My business partner is on. He's on Froggy Radio here, Danger Mulder, and he's been in Pittsburgh since 2002. But even since 2002, he's seen a change. I mean, they're just everything. Not much is live anymore. There may be a couple reads that are live during the whole show, but most of it's already pre-recorded that has to be different then. I mean,
there are a lot of things I wish I had pre-recorded. honest, there is, but that's like.
Technology wasn't there to do it, though, right?
Yeah, that would be taking all the really human part out, And if you're really anal, would you ever get anything perfect? No. How many times are you going to record that line?
No. How much of your job in that era was doing live reads for commercials? Was that a thing?
The only live part we did on the commercials was the tag. Remember to go to Eric McKenna's thing tomorrow at 5. That'd be at the end of your commercial. We'd read the tag live.
Okay. So after the pre-recorded portion.
Yeah. Then things did start to change. There were some 60-second commercials that you'd have to So, oh,
live read them?
Yeah.
For a minute?
Yeah. Can I start over, please? Can I get a... anyways.
Town talk bred, probably.
Well, it was just really hard to... Now, they can... Those things have to be recorded I think to really do them good, unless you're Jack Bogut or Jim Roach or Sean. Those guys are really good at that. I just end up screwing it all up because my pacing is not the pacing of advertising script. My pacing is out of control. It is. It's not.
What do you mean? Your pacing?
Well, it's like I go quickly and then I slow down. I go quick, and then I'm.
Your style. Your style.
That's very kind to call it style.
It is a style, absolutely.
That's
and maybe
true.
people hear your voice when they listen.
My hair is very stylish.
I can't speak to that, pal. But I will tell you the feedback that I received on our first show together. So many people said, "Oh my God, that's the voice of my child. That's the voice of my college years. It's so good to hear his voice again." And I want to tell you on air, on recording here, that the feedback's been incredible. You are beloved, my friend.
Thank you. Everybody, each and every one of you, are all kindred spirits. We are. Wow.
Yeah, this is it's an amazing town. Amazing town.
Yep.
DVE still continues to be entrenched in that. I still want to go back to the whole change when the Steelers became part of, or the Steelers broadcast became part of DVE. You were there for that, right? When there was some, because
leading up to it, not when they were officially the. It was KDKA, right? KD had the
baseball,
Steelers.
or did Channel 4 have the Steelers?
Yeah, okay, it was TAE radio.
Okay.
That's right.
There was a thing.
And
1250.
That's right, 1250. But that was O'Brien and Gary. They did some really good stuff, too.
I remember them, yeah.
But Steelers hadn't come to DVE yet, but I know that was a real dream. Gene Romano, who was a kid that grew up in Ambridge, knew how important it was. It burned his ass that DVE is not the voice of. You could pick up DVE all over the world. What do you mean, TAE? You can't pick them up in Wilmerding, and there's no Winkies there. But no, that's really, and that's what drove. I know it drove DVE and that whole. Yeah.
Well, I remember.
Good for them to have it.
Absolutely. Well, it was good for. I think it was good for the fan. It was good for people in the area because the reach was so broad and it was so clear.
It was. Yeah.
It's like Steely Dan said, no static at all.
That's right.
And FM was just so. That was cool to be a Steelers fan and be able to listen to the game in your car. On TV
and hear the same voices. It was Bill Hillgrove, and it was
exactly right.
Myron, right? Did
Myron? I think Myron was but when he was still there, I think so.
Myron
that goes back a ways.
Myron on DVE, 55,000 watts. Awesome. I love Myron.
Yeah, talk about an icon in the town, huh? That whole the AM thing. How about this? Was it better for your career to be on, not yours, just a DJ in general? Was it better to be on FM as opposed to AM during the era that you were in radio, or didn't it matter?
Well, no, that was why they let us do everything, Eric, because FM was nothing yet. We got paid minimum wage, which was like $2.50 an hour at YDD.
Oh my gosh!
You'd work a 5-hour shift, and then you're also in college or working some other job. Or my 10th grade English teacher was a disc jockey at YDD 104.7 back then.
Wow! So it was almost like a part-time job.
It was. It was a joke. FM radio.
Really?
My relatives, though, to this day will say to me, "We know you were in radio, but what did you do for a living?" I said nothing. No, but really, it was, and that's why the door was open for me, because I just walked in.
Timing.
Nobody was walking in.
Timing.
Yeah.
Timing of it all. But FM had to be, again, this goes back to when I was probably too young to remember, because I should probably know the answer to this question, but I remember WDVE, and I remember YDD. And that's probably because of my uncle, my family.
Yeah.
But I remember being so clear, and I was a Pirate fan as a kid, a baseball fan, listening to KDK, which was a strong station. But when you went to an ancillary station, 1250, 1410, you couldn't hear anything. And I had a little AM radio in my room.
Right.
When I got my first FM radio, it was just like the song. There was no static at all. Like, this is amazing. But I always wondered, as the 70s progressed and into the early 80s, for the careers, was it better to be on the AM side? Was there more money on the AM side than the FM side for folks in your industry?
I'm sure there was, yeah, until FM really started to kick in, which was, probably late 70s. Then it was good money and pension and boy, lucky.
Yeah, but some of the AM, I'm guessing with some of the AM personalities had been there probably for a long time. Your Jack Bogut's, your John Stigman to a lesser degree. There was other ones in town that were in Jack Bogut's era that were, I guess, iconic to a degree. But outside of that, FM just grew and grew and grew. And
there was never outside the shows that basically your pay reflects how much money they make on your show.
Okay, advertising.
Yeah, if they didn't make a lot of money on your show, how can we pay you?
And obviously, if there's no listeners, if there's no listeners to the station is struggling for listeners.
They would say to me, the ratings just came out, and you've been talking to yourself for 3 months.
That's in contract negotiations.
Oh, man.
This was good, my friend.
Thank you.
I think we got to plan show number 3 as well too.
Let's do that.
And we're gonna I'm putting this on the record here. I'm gonna do my darndest to get some of his compadres on with him.
That's right.
We got a round table environment here. I'd like to.
Most of them are on work release programs, so we should be able to get the.
They'll have plenty of time, right?
Plenty of time. Yes.
Thank you, Herschel. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Eric. This is so much fun. I've never had so much fun broadcasting than now.
Wow, thank you, my friend. It means a lot, and I appreciate you sharing your story. I know that the listening audience does as well too, especially in Southwestern PA.
And it's so easy. I just make it all up
as you go along.
Yeah.
Until next time, see y'all. It was amazing, buddy. Thank you so much.
Make it so easy.